Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Hope you had a good weekend. I had an enjoyable weekend. I went to church on Sunday. I hadn't been going because of being sick and not wanting to get anybody at church sick. But I finally feel better, no congestion, nothing like that. So I went to church and it was nice. Sunday night I got to hear Brother Noble preach, which I love to hear him preach. He's always interesting to listen to, and he's pretty funny. So I enjoyed that. But I'm going to just dive right into the episode today because I have a lot to cover and I want to get through it. So let's read our daily promise, which says, "But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall." Malachi 4:2. Rejoice in the sun's warming rays, and remember the comforting power of the Lord of hosts. Rapture in the healing regeneration of the Son, and revel in his effective resurrection. Skip and dance, O Son of Redemption, and find your joy in the way of righteousness. Okay, so the first thing I want to bring up is about the Anti-Defamation League and what they did recently, which was they decided to change the definition of racism on their website. And I just wanted to point this out because I thought it was interesting. So on their website it says, "Racism is the belief that a particular race is superior or inferior to another, that a person's social and moral traits are predetermined by his or her inborn biological characteristics. Racial separatism is the belief, most of the time based on racism, that different races should remain segregated and apart from one." So it says, "The marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people." Okay. That is a definition that they give on their website. Now, this organization is headed by Jonathan Greenblatt. He's a former Obama administration official. And according to The Blaze, previously stated, racism is the belief that a particular race. So that was the first one I read was their previous definition of racism, and then they changed it. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines racism as a belief that a race is fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And The Atlantic in 2016 quoted Greenblatt as saying, quote, "There's no doubt that the vast majority of American Jews live with what we would call white privilege. They aren't looked at twice when they walk into a store. They aren't looked at twice by someone in uniform. That obviously isn't a privilege that people of color have the luxury of enjoying," end quote. So the ADL was slammed following their definition update of the term. The Jewish Policy Center said this is entirely unacceptable. Seth Mandel, executive editor of the Washington Examiner magazine, said, quote, "The ADL defines racism as something that explicitly benefits white people, koshering any kind of race-based hatred, very much including anti-Semitism. It must be said that doesn't," end quote. Mandel also added that ADL also now dividing Jews by an American racial construct, which explicitly downgrades Jewishness as a defining characteristic of their identity. So in response to the ADL tweeting, quote, "We're excited to announce the inaugural class of Collaborative for Change Fellows, Jews of color, who will receive up to $25,000 to counter bias and hate through film, research, and other projects." Journalist Abigail Schreier tweeted, "Hey, ADL, were Abraham and Sarah white Jews? Were King David and Hillel Jews of color? How about the 6 million? Could they have applied to your victimology fellowship, or were they too white? Aren't we small enough as one people? Do we really require more division?" So Schreier also added, dividing the Jewish people by skin color is, using Jews of color and white Jews, is profoundly un-Jewish and destructive. In fact, it is a common tactic of enemies of the Jewish people in Israel, beyond foolish for the ADL to adopt it. So I wanted to point that out because not only did they change the definition of racism, but then they're throwing in things and saying things that are anti-Semitic, and clearly that's a very anti-Semitic thing to say. And I just thought that was very interesting. But I came across this article, and I guess this could kind of go along with racism. But there was an article from Canada, and it's on the Canadian government website. So I got this at canada.ca. And this says the government of Canada intends to appoint a special representative on combating Islamophobia. And I'll tell you why this is so funny, that they are specifically pulling this out and talking about Islamophobia. And this was released on January 28th of 2022. And it says that Islamophobia and hate in any form have no place in Canada. Today, the Honorable Ahmad Hussein, Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion, highlighted the federal government's intention to appoint a special representative on combating Islamophobia. This appointment will be part of a renewed Government of Canada anti-racism strategy. So last year, they announced its intention to make January 29th a National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack and action against Islamophobia. This year, on the eve of the 5-year anniversary of this act of terror, the Government of Canada stands with and supports Muslim communities across Canada and reaffirms its commitment to take action to denounce and tackle Islamophobia and hate-fueled violence. Islamophobia is a concrete and daily reality for Muslim communities across Canada and around the world. As we honor the victims, we must remember that we have a responsibility to combat discrimination and continue to build a more inclusive Canada. And I find it very interesting that they say that it's their responsibility to combat discrimination, at the same time discriminating against people who chose not to get the Fauci ouchie. And not allowing them, if they go into Walmart, they have to be supervised to ensure that they're only there to buy groceries and they can't buy anything else, or like go to the pharmacy, but they can't go do anything else inside Walmart, and they're being babysat as they shop. But that's not discrimination. I just find that very interesting that they do that. So to tackle systemic racism with dedicated knowledge and expertise through the Federal Anti-Racism Secretariat, as well as investments to empower communities to combat different forms of racism, including Islamophobia, and to advance digital and civic literacy initiatives that address online disinformation and hate speech, we are committed to renewing the anti-racism strategy in 2022 with a national action plan to expand our efforts to combat hate and racism. Details on the role and mandate of the special representative will be confirmed at a later date. So the Honorable Ahmad Hussein, he said, quote, "In Canada, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. The recent hate crimes fueled by Islamophobia in Canada and around the world remind us of the need to show even more boldness, strength, and determination in our fight against hate. We've listened to the lived experiences of Muslim communities from across the country who called for a special representative on combating Islamophobia. This appointment will be another important step to building a safer and more inclusive Canada for everyone." And then Mustafa Farouk, who's the CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, says, quote, "After the London terror attack, we called for action. Specifically, we asked the government to build out a special office tasked to dismantle Islamophobia. We are pleased to see the government of Canada commit to building out this office, and while there is much left to do, this is an important step." So, defined in Canada's anti-racism strategy, Islamophobia, quote, includes racism, stereotypes, prejudice, fear, or acts of hostility directed toward individual Muslims or followers of Islam in general. In addition to individual acts of intolerance and racial profiling, Islamophobia can lead to viewing and treating Muslims as a greater security threat on an institutional, systemic, and societal level. July 22 of 2021, the government hosted a national summit on Islamophobia, which helped identify ways that the government could work with Muslim communities to implement federal anti-racism initiatives that specifically address Islamophobia and hate-fueled violence. They provided more than $6 million in funding to 150 projects to support communities at risk of hate-motivated crime through the Communities at Risk Security Infrastructure Program in 2021. And they also added additional ideology-motivated violence extremist groups to the criminal code list of terrorist entities. Now, I'm not going to read any more because that specifically, the point of adding ideology-motivated violence extremist groups to their criminal code list. So, if you go here, this from the Canadian website is a list of 13 new groups as terrorist entities and completes review of 7 others. Now, I want you to pay attention to the list of the terrorist groups. And remember, we're talking about Islamophobia and what they're doing to combat that. But here's a list of some of the people on their watch list. There's 3 Al-Qaeda affiliates, Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, Front de Libertaire du Messina, and Ansar Dine. There's 5 Daesh affiliates, which is Islamic State West Africa Province, Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, Islamic State in Libya, Islamic State East Asia, and Islamic State Bangladesh, and Hizbul Mujahideen. Okay, so that's some that's been added. But there are now 73 terrorist entities listed under the criminal code. There's 2 that were listed that didn't mention anything like the other, which was Blood and Honor and Combat 18. I don't know what those are. But then if you pull up their currently listed entities, like the full list on the Public Safety Canada website, and I'll just read a few. Abdallah Azam Brigades, Abu Nidal Organization, Abu Saif Group, Al-Ashtar Brigades, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Al-Qaeda in the Indian Subcontinent, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Al-Shabaab, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, Armed Islamic Group. Let's see. You have Hezbollah, Hezbollah Mujahideen, Indian Mujahideen. Then they list the Islamic State of Bangladesh, Democratic Republic of the Congo, East Asia, Greater Sahara, Khorasan Province, Libya, Sinai Province, West Africa Province. And what I'm noticing is a lot of them are Muslim extremist groups. Palestine Liberation Front, Palestine Islamic Jihad, the Taliban. So, I mean, maybe it makes sense why some people have an issue with it. I don't think that it's individuals necessarily that they have a problem with, but it is the things that you see go on that play under the radar that nobody likes to talk about for fear of being labeled Islamophobic, like the story of the Afghans that are brought here from Afghanistan when we pulled out, and several have already been charged for doing things. Namely, the biggest one that I know about, and I don't know his name, but he was inappropriately touching a 3-year-old. And when he was questioned about it, he said that that was normal in his country, that was just their way. So I don't think it's about what the government is trying to portray, why people question it. I think it's more about the cultural differences and that they don't assimilate, most of them, and that it's changing the culture when you bring people that have completely different beliefs and a different way of life that, you know, would be okay with inappropriately touching 3-year-olds, where we look at that as very, very wrong and it's a criminal act. And I just find it interesting that they are putting this much effort into combating Islamophobia when the majority of their terrorist group watch list is based in Islam. I mean, there's a reason for that, obviously. I just thought that was very interesting. And then, of course, I pulled up the article that talks about the different definitions of extremists and terrorists, which they have religious motivations, political motivations, ideological motivations. I'm not going to go over that, but I just think it's very interesting. And I had to point that out because it just struck me as odd. Okay, so enough about Canada and their thing. But speaking of Afghanistan, there's a pregnant journalist that is stranded in Afghanistan, and she has been forced to turn to the Taliban for help. She's a New Zealand journalist, and due to PM Jacinda Ardern's COVID restrictions, was forced to turn to one of the world's most repressive regimes for help. So it says here, Charlotte Bellis found out that she was pregnant in September and has since been trying to return to her home country to no avail. According to the Daily Mail, she submitted 59 documents to New Zealand officials in Afghanistan in an attempt to secure an emergency return home, but her bid was turned down and led her to turn to the Taliban, one of the world's most oppressive regimes, for sympathy. Bellis stated in an impassioned appeal to her own government, "To the NZ government, I ask, what do you want me to do? I have done nothing wrong. I got pregnant, and I am a New Zealander," Bellis went on, pointing out the injustice of her situation. "At what point did we get so bogged down in these rules we've come up with that we can't see that she's a Kiwi in need of help and she needs to come home? The New Zealand regime has not only completely locked the country down again as of August 2021, it has also delayed elections, ostensibly due to the pandemic. All of this is despite the fact that the country to date has only reported a mere 52 deaths from COVID-19. Ironically, Bellis is in Afghanistan reporting on topics such as women's rights issues, which is known to be a touchy subject for the Taliban." So it's a very short story. I just thought that was interesting. And, I mean, that sucks. That your own country refusing to bring you home, knowing you're pregnant, you're stuck in Afghanistan, you're a woman, the Taliban's back in control, but hey, you're on your own, lady. Sounds just as bad as what Biden did to our people. Okay, one other quick short one. We know that Biden has openly admitted that he is choosing a black woman to replace the empty seat on the Supreme Court. But there was a poll that shows that most Americans want him to consider all qualified candidates for SCOTUS, not just black women. And I agree. If a black woman is the most qualified, great. If she's not, then what's the point of putting her there? And being a Supreme Court justice has nothing to do with skin color, race, ethnicity, religion. All it should matter is whether or not you intend to follow the Constitution and interpret the laws properly. But of course, that's not what they want. They want someone who's going to interpret the laws the way they want them interpreted and try to throw off balance on the Supreme Court, because even with this judge leaving, if another liberal is put in, we still outnumber on the conservative side. Sometimes. It depends on where Justice Roberts decides to lean that day, and if Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett have enough spine to do what's right. So it says here that Biden has signaled that he wants to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court to replace Justice Stephen Breyer, who's set to retire. However, over 3/4 of Americans, 76%, want Biden to consider all possible nominees for the position based on merit, the poll found. But just 23% want Biden to follow through with what he committed to. And of course, they're going to ignore what the people want and do whatever they want, even though they technically are supposed to be working for us and doing what we ask. But that has long since been forgotten. Nobody cares. Nobody in Congress. Maybe a handful. So Biden's affirmative action aligned promise goes back to his presidential campaign. So during the 2020 primaries, that's what he said he would do. He said, the person I will nominate will be someone with extraordinary qualifications, character, experience, and integrity. And that person will be the first black woman ever nominated to the United States Supreme Court. Now, I looked it up because there was rumor going around that he was going to nominate Kamala Harris. And I was like, but she's vice president. How could she be nominated? Well, she can. And if she's nominated and then confirmed, there's an opening for vice president, which Biden will then nominate somebody to take that position. And, of course, it's got to go through the House and the Senate and be voted on and everything. But my idea that I think he intends to nominate Obama, because we do know there was a time that Obama said if he could have a third term to be president, but not do all the speeches and the showy stuff, but just run everything behind the scenes, that he would like to do it that way. And this would definitely give him that opportunity. But then today, I even heard rumor that he may nominate Hillary Clinton to the vice president if Kamala Harris got nominated and confirmed to SCOTUS. So, who knows what they're really trying to do, but I think if Kamala Harris is nominated and confirmed, we need to be very vigilant on, especially the House and Senate when voting, need to pay attention to who's being nominated and not allow anybody in that position that they think is going to take control and derail everything, even worse than it already is. So it says 43% of voters believe justices rule on the basis of their partisan political views rather than on the basis of the law, which is a position held by only 38% of respondents. 18% did not know enough to express a view one way or the other. I think you have a couple on there that rule properly, but for the most part, I think you do have people that are ruling based on political leanings, and not necessarily their own, but political leanings in order not to be attacked, canceled, labeled bad names. And I would be specifically speaking of Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett. I think they're spineless. I'm very disappointed in their performance thus far. Very disappointed. Okay. There was something that I saw that I wanted to look at, but I can't remember what it was I was going to look at. Oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. Okay. Moving on. I'm going very quickly because it's late and I'm tired and I have to work tomorrow. So this may be a shorter episode than normal. From the Jerusalem Post. I thought this was interesting. New MERS-related virus, neo-CoV, may be more lethal, transmissible. Study. So the World Health Organization cautioned against making such conclusions before further study can be done. Okay. I'll try to go through this quickly. So a new lethal virus known as neo-CoV has been discovered. It may be more transmissible with one mutation, according to a new study by Chinese scientists from where? Wuhan. Though some experts are cautioning that further study is needed, it has not yet made the leap to humans. According to the study, which is in preprint and is therefore not yet peer-reviewed, the neo-CoV variant is a type of coronavirus originally discovered in South Africa. However, it isn't entirely new. According to the researchers, the neo-CoV variant is linked to the MERS-CoV virus, also known as Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, which had outbreaks in several countries in the Middle East before. Like other coronaviruses, which refers to a type of virus and not specifically to COVID-19, it is not unprecedented for it to exist in animals as well as humans. Right now, neo-CoV is only known to spread among bats, but can it transmit to humans? According to the Wuhan researchers, the answer is yes, and it is only one mutation away from becoming dangerous for human life. Yet we're letting them study it in the Wuhan lab. Did we not learn our lesson from 2 years ago? We should be definitely doing everything we can to shut that down. Guaranteed. There's going to be something that they do, and something's going to happen that is going to cause another problem like in 2020. Now, mark my words, it is coming. So further, according to the study, antibodies targeting both SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19, and MERS-CoV were not able to stop neo-CoV. However, the WHO cautioned against making such conclusions. So whether the virus detected in the study will pose a risk for humans will require further study, the organization told Russian news agency TASS, adding that it works closely with the World Organization for Animal Health, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and the UN Environment Program in order to monitor and respond to the threat of emerging zoonotic viruses. So it is almost February, guaranteed. I won't say guaranteed. I'm going to give it about 3 months before something super major comes out of the Wuhan lab that has to do with this story. That's what I give it. Okay. So from Blaze Media, isolated island in Pacific Ocean experiences first COVID-19 cases of the pandemic after arrival of fully vaccinated, triple-tested missionaries who were in quarantine. So we know, so it says here that the first signs of COVID surfaced in Wuhan on December 12th, 2019. I think it might have been earlier. And by December 2020, it reached every continent on the planet after the first cases were detected on Antarctica. On Antarctica? There were cases on Antarctica? I didn't know that. How many people are on Antarctica? Anyway, through the entire endemic and pandemic, the remote island nation of Kiribati had managed to not have a single case of COVID-19 until January 19th, 2022. Kiribati is an isolated island nation in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a population of roughly 122,000. Kiribati closed its borders 10 months ago and then reopened the country this month. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints chartered a plane to Kiribati this month to bring home 54 of the island nation's citizens. Many of the travelers were missionaries who had left Kiribati before the country closed the border. There were highly rigorous precautions to ensure that the travelers didn't bring COVID-19 to the unspoiled island nation. First, everyone had to be fully vaccinated. Second, passengers had to test negative 3 times in nearby Fiji before arrival. Third, they had been in pre-departure quarantine for 2 weeks before the flight. Fourth, they were put in quarantine with additional testing when they arrived home, according to the Associated Press. Despite the over-the-top safeguards, 2/3 of the travelers were diagnosed with COVID after arriving from Fiji on January 15th. Of the 54 passengers, 36 tested positive. On January 19th, Kiribati reported 37 cases. As of January 28th, there are 181 confirmed cases and no deaths. Kiribati declared a state of disaster and quickly instituted restrictions, including lockdowns, curfews, and quarantine sites. There are 33% of Kiribati citizens who are fully vaccinated against COVID. There was a similar situation last month in Antarctica, where nearly 2/3 of the research staff based at the Princess Elizabeth Polar Station became infected despite strict health protocols in place. The workers at the Princess Elizabeth Polar Station were also fully vaccinated, took multiple PCR tests, and quarantined before arriving at the research facility. Now, if that doesn't make you question the efficacy, I really don't know what to say, because it's very questionable. So from Blaze Media, there's an article by Daniel Horowitz. Whistleblowers share DoD medical data that blow Fauci-ouchie safety debate wide open. So I'm going to read this very slowly so I can make sure to use my code words as to not get taken down on YouTube. Data transparency and surveillance. That is what has been missing from the greatest experiment on humans of all time throughout this pandemic. Now, military medical whistleblowers have come forward with what they claim is perhaps the most accurate and revealing data set on Fauci-ouchie safety one could possibly find. The pro-pharma politicians and media claim the CDC's pharmacosurveillance tool, VAERS, is not good enough to trigger investigations into the Fauci-ouchie because anyone can supposedly submit a Fauci-ouchie adverse event entry. Thus, all the concerning safety signals from VAERS are being ignored, even though that system was put in place as a consolation to the public for absolving Fauci-ouchie manufacturers of liability. Well, now some military whistleblowers are coming forward to present data that, if verified, would signal extremely disturbing safety concerns about the Fauci-ouchie that make the VAERS data look like child's play. On Monday, during Senator Ron Johnson's 5-hour hearing on a COVID-19 second opinion, Ohio attorney Thomas Renz, who has been representing clients suing the Fauci-ouchie mandates, presented DoD medical billing data from the Defense Medical Epidemiology Database, or DMED, that paints a shockingly disturbing picture of the health of our service members in 2021. So according to the military, DMED is the Armed Forces Health Surveillance Branch's, quote, web-based tool to remotely query de-identified active component personnel and medical event data contained within the Defense Medical Surveillance System. So in other words, it contains every ICD medical billing code for any medical diagnosis in the military submitted for medical insurance billing during any given period of time. 3 military doctors have presented queried data to Renz that shows a shocking and sudden spike in nearly every ICD code for common Fauci-ouchie injuries in 2021. In a declaration under penalty of perjury that Renz plans to use in federal courts, Drs. Samuel Sigaloff, Peter Chambers, and Teresa Long, 3 military doctors, revealed that there has been a 300% increase in DMED codes registered for miscarriages in the military in 2021 over the 5-year average. The 5-year average was 1,499 codes for miscarriages per year. During the first 10 months of 2021, it was 4,182. As Renz explained to me in an interview with The Blaze, these doctors queried the numbers for hundreds of codes from 2016 through 2020 to establish a baseline 5-year average. These codes were generally for ailments and injuries that medical literature has established as being potential adverse effects of the Fauci-ouchies. Renz told me the numbers tended to be remarkably similar in all those preceding years, including in 2020, which was the first year of the pandemic, but before the Fauci-ouchies were distributed. But then in 2021, the numbers skyrocketed, and the 2021 data doesn't even include the months of November and December. For example, some public health officials speculate that COVID itself places women at higher risk for miscarriages, but the number of miscarriage codes recorded in 2020 was actually slightly below the 5-year average, 1,477. However, they were not drastically below the average on any one category in a way that one can suggest it reflects lockdown-related decreases in doctor's visits, which somehow led to an increase in 2021 diagnoses. The database has all the ICD code for both military hospital visits and ambulatory visits. The data presented by Renz so far is all from the query of ambulatory diagnosis data. Aside from the spike in miscarriage diagnoses, which ICD code 003 for spontaneous abortions, there was an almost 300% increase in cancer diagnoses from a 5-year average of 38,700 per year to 114,645 in the first 11 months of 2021. There was also a 1,000% increase in diagnosis codes for neurological issues, which increased from a baseline average of 82,000 to 863,000. Some other numbers he did not mention at the hearing but gave to me in the interview are the following. Myocardial infarction, 269% increase. Bell's palsy, 291% increase. Congenital malformations for children and military personnel, 156% increase. Female infertility, 471% increase. And pulmonary embolisms, 467% increase. All these numbers are among the ambulatory visits because those are where the vast number of diagnoses in the military occur. However, Renz did say the increases were indicated in the hospitalized patients as well. I have seen one of the sworn declarations from one of the military doctors, and it states as follows, quote, "It is my professional opinion that the major increases incidences of the above discussed instances of miscarriages, cancers, and disease were due to Fauci ouchies. According to, for the Rona. According to Renz, it was the actual clinical experience of the 3 named doctors and several unnamed doctors that led them to investigate DMED, and their discoveries reflected their experience treating patients with ailments extremely unusual to healthy young soldiers since the rollout of the Fauci ouchies. I have spoken to one of the whistleblowers who attests to being gravely concerned with seeing young soldiers with sudden metastatic cancers, autoimmune diseases, and heart and circulatory disorders that have caused many soldiers to drop out of various training programs. Quote, these doctors were motivated to explore DMED data due to the numbers of case increases they were seeing empirically. End quote, said the whistleblower, who served in the military for many years. He said some physicians throughout the force of all the branches have been intimidated by commands not to perform the full spectrum of testing and adhere to the regulations, which implicitly direct full workups for EUA Fauci ouchie adverse reactions. It will require other military positions to step forward and share experiences to fully ascertain the enormity of these allegations and engender an investigation to the fullest extent. Renz claims he has a video with 2 witnesses showing the entire process of downloading this data from the database and is prepared to present it in court. He also told me that this is just the tip of the iceberg, as the codes have increased exponentially in numerous other diagnosis categories. Renz said a spreadsheet, which includes over 100 medical diagnosis categories, were shared with Senator Johnson and his staff before the Monday hearing. It's important to note that these numbers do not represent the number of individual people diagnosed with various ailments, but number of diagnoses codes used in totality at a given time. For example, someone who has a stroke is obviously going to rack up numerous neurological ICD codes over the course of a year with multiple ambulatory and hospital visits. However, the apples-to-apples comparison from the previous 5 years clearly shows an unmistakable spike in ailments. If these numbers are verified in the upcoming court cases, then absent some massive military insurance fraud or bizarre glitch in the system, it potentially paints a shocking picture of Fauci ouchie safety concerns that would indicate that not only were the bears' safety signals something that should immediately have been followed up on, but they are plagued by willful underreporting. The military is a defined, finite, and closely controlled and monitored population. They are also overwhelmingly young and healthy. If allegations of neurological, cardio, and cancer concerns surrounding the Fauci ouchies are indeed true, the military would be the most revealing place to discover it, and their data is the most reliable and undisputable. DMED is quite literally an epidemiological surveillance program designed for the express purpose of detecting surges in illness and injury to make sure the military is combat ready. It's about national security even more than public health. Why would the military not have blown the whistle and warned the CDC right away about this data? On the Military Health System website, the Armed Forces Health Surveillance Division is described as, quote, the central epidemiologic resource for the U.S. Armed Forces, conducting medical surveillance to protect those who serve our nation in uniform and allies who are critical to our national security interests, end quote. So how could the blaring and glaring surveillance signals of a lifetime be ignored by the Defense Health Agency? And how is this not conveyed to the general public? The question is why the military public health analysts have not been communicating with military doctors about the shocking spikes in diagnoses this year, and why they have not put out any analysis explaining it. For his part, Senator Ron Johnson said at the Monday hearing that he put DOD on notice that it better not delete any of the data. He said, the Department of Defense, the Biden admin, is on notice. They must preserve these records, and this must be investigated. Renz testified at the hearing that some of the myocarditis data was slid backwards since the doctors originally downloaded it last year. Even if somehow these earth-shattering increases have nothing to do with the Fauci ouchies, isn't it important that our government investigate what appears to be a catastrophic decline in the health of our active duty fighting force? After all, the DMED data was designed for this very purpose. Quote, a person can do a research paper just on this data alone, said a whistleblower. It was designed for this very purpose. The amount of data points you could query is nearly unlimited. The bottom line, according to Renz, is that the onus of proof is on the government, not on the military personnel and citizens being forced to take the shots. If the manufacturers are exempt from liability for government coercion to use their product, and the only pharmacological safety data we have is completely ignored, then where is the recourse of the people to redress safety concerns? In the opinion of the Ohio attorney, if the shots are safe and effective, then the Pentagon should have no problem explaining the source of these gargantuan increases in instances of numerous illnesses. Transparency is the most potent cure of a pandemic of secrecy. So there we go. That's what's been going on with the military and I believe the cover-up of the adverse reactions of getting the Fauci ouchie. And I think there's a lot. And I don't think it's a safe thing to be doing. And I think people that have not experienced any issues, maybe they're fortunate and they'll be fine and never have any issues. But maybe theirs just isn't immediate and something might come up down the road later on in 6 months, a year, 5 years. You just don't know. There's just no data to show that. So, and I think this is proof that those of us who have been hesitant, now we can clearly show that we had every right to be hesitant and not just putting something in our bodies that we know nothing about, that rolled out so quickly. And as much as I support Trump for the policies that he put in place and the way that he was running the country, I did not support his backing of encouraging people to get this if they don't feel like it's safe. And I feel like there should be more conservatives looking into the issue of safety rather than just encouraging and promoting people to go do it just because they did and nothing's happened to them yet. I think there should be more looking into that. So also from Blaze Media, I came across this. Former Kansas teacher led all-female ISIS battalion, trained children how to use suicide belts, and wanted to blow up a shopping mall and college. So, an American citizen, she's been arrested and accused of leading this ISIS battalion. Allison Fluke Ekren, 42, was apprehended in Syria and transferred into the custody of the FBI on Friday. Fluke Ekren has been involved with terrorism-related activities on behalf of ISIS from at least 2014. The former Kansas teacher was involved in the planning of a terror attack on a U.S. college campus, according to the criminal complaint filed in 2019 and unsealed after her arrest. In 2014, Fluke Ekren discussed a plot to dress like infidels and use a backpack full of explosives to kill students at an unnamed college. FBI Special Agent David Robbins said in the criminal affidavit. She allegedly told a witness, quote, not to worry about the logistics because she knew how to get into the U.S. from Mexico. End quote. In 2016, Fluke Ekren purportedly became the leader of the Kataba Nusayba, an all-female military unit of the Islamic State in Raqqa, Syria. The battalion was composed of women who were married to ISIS fighters. Fluke Ekren also allegedly trained more than 100 women and children on how to use AK-47 assault rifles, grenades, and suicide belts. A witness said one of Fluke Ekren's 5 children, who at the time was approximately 5 years old, was holding a machine gun at the family's home in Syria. Fluke Ekren allegedly talked about blowing up a shopping mall in the United States. She purportedly planned to park a vehicle full of explosives in the basement or parking garage of the shopping mall, then detonate the explosives with a cell phone. Fluke Ekren considered any attack that did not kill a large number of individuals to be a waste of resources, the criminal complaint reads. According to the same witness, Fluke Ekren would hear about external attacks taking place in countries outside the U.S. and would comment that she wished the attack had occurred on United States soil instead. When asked how radicalized Fluke Ekren was, according to one witness who interacted with Fluke Ekren in Syria, Fluke Ekren was off the charts and an 11 or a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being extremely radicalized, the criminal complaint states. Fluke Ekren left the U.S. in 2008 and moved to Egypt. She migrated to Libya and then Syria around 2012 with her husband. The New York Post reported her first husband was killed in Syria 2016 as he attempted to carry out a terrorist attack prosecutor said. She subsequently wed a Bangladeshi ISIS member who also died, then married a prominent ISIS leader who headed the group's failed 2017 defense of Raqqa. The Associated Press reported photos from a family blog called 4 Kansas Kids show her and her children in the years they traveled between Kansas and Egypt, posing at the base of the pyramids in Egypt and playing in the snow in the U.S. Fluke Ekron is charged with providing and conspiring to provide material support or resources to a foreign terrorist organization. If convicted, she faces a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison, according to the Justice Department. Fluke Ekron is expected to have her initial appearance on Monday at the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. Yeah, we're talking about we need to, in Canada, institute a special representative to fight against Islamophobia. And this would be exactly why some people have an issue with the Islam religion. That right there. It's I can't really say much because this would get taken down for sure. I'd probably be banned forever from YouTube if I really went into exactly what I thought about all of that. The last thing that I wanted to do is there's a video, it's a leaked video, and it shows a heated showdown when Border Patrol agents confront top officials over Biden's immigration policies. Now, of course, if you are audio only, you'll have to go to my YouTube channel if you want to see it, or you can just go find it on Blaze. But I'd rather you go to my channel and watch my video, so that way I can, get the views there. But we're going to watch this video and see what happens.
The administrative policy, morale, and retention and border patrol is extremely horrible right now. My question to you is, what are you going to do to kind of get the ball rolling in a positive direction as far as retention and boosting them together?
Yeah, I do want to take that actually, because I agree with you. Right? I do think that morale's at an all-time low. I do think that we're losing way too many agents, not just agents, professional staff, OFO is under some of the same stresses. Today, one of my friends is going to get buried in Tucson, California. Retired chief who committed suicide this past week, who has 2 sons in the Border Patrol still, and that's tough, right? And so, as an organization, we got to start taking care of each other, right? No offense, Mr. Secretary, but I need to do a better job of taking care of y'all, but y'all need to do a better job of taking care of me. But we tear each other down instead of building each other up. And Kari Huffman, who is the senior Border Patrol agent, I'm the senior Border Patrol agent, but as far as time in the Border Patrol, he's the senior guy, right? 1986. He is our chief operating officer. His number one priority is resiliency for CBP. So we've got to put together some programs and some initiatives that take care of us, right? Whether it's our physical fitness, our mental fitness, our spiritual fitness, it's all of it. And I get it. You come to work, you're frustrated, you're upset because you didn't get the desired outcome that you want. Doesn't mean you give up, right? I know you're not. That's why I'm saying we don't give up. We stay focused. We continue to do the job and the mission that we signed up for. Right? We all signed up for it. We all raised our hand.
It's kind of hard to say that.
To defend the Constitution, not the
It's not hard to say it. It may be hard for you to say it, but I've been doing this for 31 years. It's not hard for me to say it. Every day I wake up and I'm committed to this organization and I'm committed to each one of y'all.
We say the same thing, but it seems like the policy's not.
But then you keep releasing criminal
Because
aliens in the country.
you're getting bogged down in the policies and the
You can't even
politics.
say illegal alien.
What's that?
You can't even say that.
That's why Chief Scott left.
You just said it.
You can't
Is
say
anything going to happen to you? You just said
Yeah,
it.
let's bring it
The
back.
whole generation, whole generation.
Why are you guys getting caught up in semantics? Right? There's a mission out there to be. There's a mission out there to be had, guys. We can sit here and argue about it till we're blue in the face. Right? I've been doing this job as long as y'all.
That's the problem.
What's that?
That's the problem, Chief. For evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's
I can't hear
what's
you.
happening. For evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's exactly what's happening here. Good men are doing nothing. You're allowing illegal aliens to be dropped off in communities.
You are doing something.
No, sir, we're not.
You are.
No, sir.
You're rescuing people every day. You're taking fentanyl off the streets every day. You're taking methamphetamine
Yes, and under this
criminal
administration
aliens
for the
off the
last
streets
year, we've
every
got the
day.
highest fentanyl death in the history of our country. In 1 year, in this country.
You know, we've made more
What do you
fentanyl seizures already this year than we made last year.
How many have we not catch because we're focusing on expanding?
I don't know.
And that's the problem.
And we're working on it.
Well, where's the results? We don't have results.
On a lighter note, when are we going to get the VF money solution? We need some new orders.
Okay, so for those of y'all that are on audio, I'll go through a little bit of what happened in the video. It was an exchange of Border Patrol agents who work in southern Arizona turned their backs on Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas in protest of the Biden administration's immigration policies. So the video shows Border Patrol agents confront Mayorkas and Ortiz over low morale among Border Patrol agents, which was attributed to the Biden admin's lenient immigration policies. One agent asked Mayorkas what steps the Biden admin would take to, quote, get the ball rolling in a positive direction. But Mayorkas declined to answer the question and asked Ortiz to respond. Ortiz then admitted that morale is at an all-time low, but stressed that Border Patrol agents need to do a better job of taking care of agency leaders, and agency leaders need to do a better job of taking care of rank-and-file agents. He said, I get it. You come to work, you're frustrated, you're upset because you didn't get the desired outcome that you want. Doesn't mean you give up. One agent shot back, we're not. He said, I know you're not, Ortiz replied. That's what I'm saying. We don't give up. We stay focused. We continue to do the job and the mission that we signed up for. We all signed up for it. We all raised our hand. That is when the confrontation became heated. One agent fired back that Border Patrol's job is to defend the Constitution, not the administration. Another agent said, it's kind of hard to say that, referring to Ortiz's previous comments, but Ortiz screamed over that agent. It's not hard to say it, Ortiz screamed. It may be hard for you to say it. I've been doing this for 31 years. It's not hard for me to say it. In response, agents pointed out that the admin policies run contrary to the mission of the Border Patrol, citing policies that permit the release of illegal immigrants into the U.S. He said, you're getting bogged down in the policies and the politics. Agents then responded that they are not even permitted to use the phrase illegal alien, but Ortiz denied that that was the case. You just said it. See? Is anything going to happen to you? Why are you so caught up in the semantics, right? There's a mission out there to be had, guys, Ortiz added as agents continued to speak over him in protest. We can sit here and argue until we're blue in the face. I've been doing this job as long as y'all. That's the problem, Chief, one agent fired back. For evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's exactly what's happening here. Good men are doing nothing. You're allowing illegal aliens to be dropped off in communities. And then they talk about, that I think it was in 2021 we had the highest deaths related to fentanyl in ever. But Ortiz shoots back that, in this year we've seized the most amount of fentanyl than we ever have. And I'm like, yep, that don't really matter because look at what did come through. Look at what is happening. There are private contractors that are flying illegal aliens from the border into New York at an airport after curfew, not even notifying the security that's there, and telling them, well, I can't really tell you anything. We had to be on the down low. Got this from Slightly Offensive, and you can go check out the video on there, the article that they showed, but they were literally like, well, we're supposed to be on the down low. We can't really say anything. And the security guard is like, man, I don't understand. Nobody tells me anything. You can't be doing this. And I don't get paid enough for this. This is above my pay grade. Clearly upset that this was being allowed to take place. And it's not just New York. I mean, they're flying them all over. So I get why Border Patrol agents are getting upset, because not the ones that are part of the bureaucracy, but they're there to do a job. They chose that job for a specific reason, and they're not being allowed to do it. Just like when people join the military, they join for a specific reason. Most join because they have a calling to fight and defend this country and to keep it free. And they're not even being allowed to do that either. And it's really hard for someone who felt that they had that calling to be told, well, you can't really do any of that anymore. The Constitution doesn't matter. Laws don't matter. This doesn't matter. The country doesn't even matter anymore. Just the elite agenda to take control of everything matters. So you can't do your job anymore. And I'm sure that's devastating for those people, because they've sacrificed a lot, and they put a lot of time and effort into doing the job properly. And now they can't do what they feel like they were called to do, that they probably love doing. They probably love their job. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. No one would want to do that job unless they felt a deep need to be there to do it. It's just really sad. It's sad to see everything just turn upside down, go sideways, and it feels like we can't ever get to a point where we can stop and start adjusting the course and correcting it. It's like we never get there, because it's just one thing after another. It's this, it's that, it's it's a lot. So much is going on. And it really is, it's frustrating. And I'm not even doing jobs like this. But it's frustrating for me. It's probably frustrating for most Americans that sit back and really look at what's happening and think about, like, how did we get here? Well, we got here because we got comfortable. We got lazy. Things have gotten too easy. And we've not really ever had to do much of anything but just live our lives. And maybe we should have been paying attention more, even when we thought it didn't matter. Believe me, I'm just as much to blame. I never really paid attention to politics. I always wanted a Republican to be president. I voted always for Republicans. But to me, it never really made a difference. Democrat, Republican, it's all the same to me. Maybe a few differences in policies, but for the most part, everything stayed the same. And now everything is not. There is such... The right and the left are so diametrically opposed to each other that it is painfully obvious, and you can't ignore it anymore. You just can't ignore it. So something does have to be done. Anyway, I'm going to leave the episode here for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you had a good time. Don't forget, go subscribe to the podcast. You can go to Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple. I think there's other ones, but you just have to go look. Find the podcasting platform that you like and check it out and see if it's there. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and share the videos. And you can leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you. And also, subscribe. But because those don't mean much of anything, you also have to hit the notification bell to know when I upload a new video. Now, when I say that the subscribing doesn't mean much of anything, it doesn't mean much of anything in the way of you knowing what's going on the channel. But it does mean a lot to me in building my audience. So, please subscribe, even though it doesn't help you, it helps me. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.